Hello everybody, Oliver G here from the Earful Tower podcast, and today's guest is Corinne Menegaux, who is the managing director of the Paris tourism office Paris Je t'aime, and I met her in her office to talk about the city of Paris, obviously, her relationship with it, the Olympic Games, and now that the Olympic Games are 1 year on, what it all meant for the city of Paris going forward. So this is a pretty fun chat. If you're a Paris fan, if you're thinking to come, this is a real insight from the top, really. I mean, we talk about what her job is. What does she do? I mean, a typical tourism board in other cities probably works most to try and attract people to come. Paris doesn't have to deal with that problem. Everybody already loves Paris. You're listening to the podcast. So we talk about what a tourism board director does. We talk about a lot of the usual stuff you hear on this podcast. If you're new around here, as I said, my name is Oliver G. I've been doing this show for over 8 years now with a new episode pretty much every Monday where a special guest talks about Paris. Sometimes France, sometimes the French language, but always a little bit of Paris. So let's get into the episode. Corinne Menegaux from the Paris Je t'aime tourism board of the French capital, and I'll be back at the end with some news and with some more from Paris. Let's get into it. Corinne, thank you for having me in your office.
Thank you, Oliver. Happy to be there.
You're talking with a twinge of LA American in your accent. Have you just been there?
Yeah, just went there last week, in fact. So we're working with the LA Tourism Board to support them also and help them understand how to deliver the Olympics. And so that was great to, share our expertise on that and a little revival for us of 2024. That was great.
Do they want your help?
Yeah, of course they want. And they're very willing to have some insights from the Olympics. And, the Olympics is always very counterintuitive, I would say, because everyone knows it as a very big international event, which is the case in terms of showcasing and advertising campaign and everything. But at the same time, this is not as well a leverage as in tourism that we should probably expect, because during the games, it's mostly national attendance, not so much international. So that's always very difficult, to balance that with the expectations of all the professionals and everyone about it. And so I think this is really key that we can share that also and help them understand exactly what would be the leverage and how you can build on the Olympics the future of a destination.
Because I know that one of the huge goals of the Paris Olympics was showcasing the city, like in a big way, not just the stadiums. But we'll talk about that in a second. I think I want to get to know you a little bit. I want the audience to get to know you. You've been working as in French, would you say directrice générale? Is that what you would say?
Yeah, directrice générale, managing director. The
managing director of the Paris Tourism Board, officially Paris Je t'aime. That's the name of the brand. Now, that's a lot of words. I don't understand. Can you tell me exactly what your job is?
The job is really to promote the city, of course, all around the world and the visitors. Probably our focus would be mainly to focus on the visitor experience, how we enhance it, because we don't need to talk about the city. Everyone talks about it, and everyone loves Paris, which is a great destination. But I think the more the people are happy with the visit in Paris, the better it is for us. And probably the other big part of the work that we're doing is how we engage all the community of the professionals in Paris to be sure to enhance this visitor experience, but also promote hospitality, be sure that the offer is the right one, things like that.
Okay, so if I may paraphrase, basically you're saying people are going to come here anyway. They already are. The numbers are huge. The Olympics surely helped, and we'll talk about the Olympics more. But when they get here, your job is to make sure they have a good time, essentially.
Exactly.
And that's what okay, that's interesting, because that must be really different to a lot of other tourism boards in a lot of other cities, full stop. A lot of people would probably be focused on bringing them in. You've got the people, you want to make them happy.
Yeah, and probably Paris has a very different overview than any other city, or maybe it's comparable to New York or London as international cities. So we work a lot together, the three others, and we've got quite the same vision, I would say. So of course, I don't think we need to promote it everywhere and to put some money on it. But the better that we put money on the transformation of a city and how we welcome the visitors, how we make sure that all the visitors also consume local, and how we can enhance the local impact that the tourism has. This is the better.
That's interesting, and I think it kind of reminds me. There's a lot of people who think, and I think incorrectly, that French people can be quite, especially Parisians, can be quite standoffish. Sort of like everything we got is great. Like we might not need your help. I wonder if that's a struggle for you guys in that the hard job has been done. Like you only have to make sure people are happy. Do you think that's a difficulty with your job? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but not really, I think, because all the people working in the tourism industry, they're really keen about how we welcome people, about hospitality and everything. So I'm pretty sure that we're very convinced that this is really important. Afterwards, the residents could be a little different.
Right, but that's not your job, right?
Yeah, and that's not my job. But I think we are pretty convinced in the city of Paris that tourism is a key sector of the economy that we have. So we saw that with the COVID, I would say. So probably the acceptance of the residents in the city with the tourism is much more ideal here than any other else.
Well, I mean, you see these things in like Barcelona and places where locals are sort of turning on tourists. Do you feel that there's any kind of that sentiment here?
No, not really. But we're lucky to have, first, probably a very big destination finally, because you don't have only tourism in inner Paris, I would say. So it's Greater Paris and the region around Paris. So it's quite big. So we've got quite a lot of point of interest to visit and a lot of offer. So the diversification of the offer helps a lot for that. Probably also we've got, we're very lucky that the main center of interest, like when you come for the first time in Paris, like the Earful Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, the Louvre, etc., are not in some places where you've got a lot of residents finally. So they're very eccentric from the center of Paris. They are in the center geographically, but they're not really residential areas. And last, but not the least, probably we have a lot of people coming back to Paris. So that means probably 2/3 of our visitors are coming back 3 times, 4 times.
2/3 of the visitors to Paris are repeat visitors.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's
so
huge.
that changes quite the perception that you have in Paris, because when you come the first time, you go to the Earful Tower and to the Louvre, but probably the other time you go to all the other neighborhoods and you've got so many reasons to come back and see a very different Paris. So this is key.
Well, I totally agree with you. And like I've got this podcast I've been doing for 8 years. In the beginning, I think I focused a little bit more on the first-time visits and the things that people should go and do. But what makes your job easy and my job easy is that there's such a depth to this city that even when you're talking to people who've visited for 50 times or lived here for 10 years, you can still find things that will knock people's socks off. But in terms of the city, I mean, it's your job, and I have to assume that you love Paris, but it doesn't necessarily mean... I've got a friend, I'm not going to name it, but he works for one of the most famous sports teams in the world, and he doesn't even like that sport. Right?
Really?
So, yeah. So he doesn't even watch the games. So what I want to ask you is, do you really love Paris? And can you prove it to me? How much do you love this city?
Yeah, I love really Paris. I'm a real Parisian girl.
What does that mean? Where were you born?
I've been there for 2 generations. So
Okay.
that doesn't happen. Nobody is from Paris for 2 generations now. So I'm a Parisian. I'm a real one. Yeah, honestly, I like the life here. So I wouldn't change for anything. Because I think there is a specific atmosphere in Paris that you find nowhere else. It's a beautiful city anyway. So when you get up in the morning and just walk around, that's pretty cool.
Can I ask where you live? Which district?
18th.
Well, that's pretty...
So that's pretty cool. And that's also, very popular neighborhood. So this is cool just to see the mixity of the population and everything. And this is really something I like, really.
I think a lot of people mistakenly think 18th arrondissement, Montmartre, too touristy, forget it. And that's true in some parts on Saturday afternoon. But I used to live... sort of, Rue Germain-Pilon, the one that goes up from Pigalle. I loved it there. I thought there was so much on offer, and it was very local, converse to what people think. So I think there's an awful lot going on up there.
Yeah, and honestly, I think you've got this atmosphere in each neighborhood finally in Paris. So each neighborhood has its DNA and its own atmosphere, identity, but they're pretty much cool, all of them. And so when you live in Paris, you get to, like it. You have your neighborhood, you see the neighbors, you talk to everyone. So that's quite interesting. It's not a big city as we could imagine, where you don't see anyone. That's not at all the case. And you've got a very bunch of small shop, artisan, artwork, the bakeries and everything. So that's very easy to live finally in Paris.
Have you always lived in the 18th?
No, I was in all different arrondissements all the time, and each of it was really cool. So
I found that I've lived in 5 different districts now, and I always think, I figured it out. This is what Parisians are like. And then I used to live in the 7th, near the Eiffel Tower. It was really cool. It was different. But I remember everyone around us was about 80 years old. And so we had our first child, and everybody loved that kid. They'd come up and tickle his toes, and they'd say, and I used to think Parisians adore children. Then we moved to the 12th, had another kid. There's 1 million kids in the 12th, no one cares. And I was like, oh, hang on, maybe Parisians don't love children, but maybe older Parisians. What I learned from that, as a random example, is that when you say villages, it feels like not just 20 different villages for 20 different arrondissements, but hundreds of different villages based on where you happen to have your home. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I fully agree with that, because I think wherever you are, you create your own, village around you, and as we say, it's needed a village to raise a kid. And so anyway,
there you go. We could almost. That was a good segue. We could almost tie village into Olympic Village, but I don't want to go there yet. I want to talk a bit more about Paris. You talked about 2/3 of the people are repeat visitors. You talked about first timers often going to the Eiffel Tower, Louvre, and so on. I'm wondering if Eiffel Tower, Louvre, and Arc de Triomphe, and so on, are similar to what you were saying about the people already coming to Paris. You don't have to do the work to get them here. Is it the same with what you focus on? You don't really focus on those big famous things anymore, and you dig a little deeper with the Paris Tourism Board? Or are they still a very important part of everything that you do?
I would say a little of both. Really digging more in depth into Paris just to showcase the global offer of Paris and the diversity of offer. So not focused only on these big monuments, which are part of our history and everything.
I think you rolled your eyes a little bit there.
But at the same time, we still love them. So I love the Earful Tower. Yeah. This is one of my favorite.
That's where we met.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But really, I love it. I think it's a real symbol of so many things. So that's pretty great. But I think we can also use the attractiveness of these monuments to help, discover the global neighborhood around that. And so this is really something that we make happen. That means we've got these digital tools, myparisjet'aime.com. It's an interactive map, sort of Google map, I would say, of tourism. And when you're somewhere, that gives you around everything that you can do also around, but also local addresses, like local best croissant, for example, in Paris, something like that. So that helps you also probably discover some new neighborhoods, even if you go to a main monument. So we can't oppose both of them, but I think we've got also to go deeper into the offer that we have, because we've got so many things to discover.
Where is the best croissant in Paris, according to you?
That's a good question, but we've got a contest every year in Paris, so I don't know which one is this year.
But you're the only one that can really answer the question. Do you have a favorite place?
I wouldn't say that. I can't share that.
Fair enough. People will be listening, ready with their pen and paper.
But they have a lot. We have a lot, okay. In fact. Probably we get some in every arrondissement, finally, every district.
Yeah, I think you're right. What do you think about, there'll be people listening for sure who've never been to Paris and they're thinking to come to Paris. They've got this great fortune of hearing you talking about Paris. Is there something that you think a lot of people get wrong with this city? Like, maybe they bite off too much, or they head for just the monuments. Is there something that people tend to do wrong on their first visit?
Well, maybe when you're a first comer, you come for the first time, you want to check on your list the monument that you want to see. So I would say that the best way of visiting a city, but I'm doing that exactly in the same thing in US, for example, it's wandering into the city. And we are fortunate that Paris is quite a small city finally. So you can do by foot or bike or whatever, but it's very easy to get lost into the streets and just be open to any discoveries. I think people like these times. Very often, finally, you just run to do everything, and you miss it. And it's probably the best way of discovering something. Just creating new habits, creating new meetings, relationship with some people, discussing with the waiter, etc. at the terrace of the cafe. This is the best.
I think there's a lot of, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of people, especially we mentioned America. In America where you maybe don't get that much holiday every year. And so you come to Paris, you got 6 days and you want to fill those days because this might be your only chance for the year or for your life. And I think that concept of putting time to be a flaneuse is scary. Like if you were scripting someone's 5-day, 6-day trip, would you say a whole day of nothingness should be included or more than this?
I would say even more than this. It's not giving you a full day for that, but it's maybe taking the time when you go to a special district. If you go to the Louvre, for example, you take the day around into the neighborhood. So you do your 2 or 3 hour tours into the museum, but for the rest, you just take a walk around the gardens and the different places, etc. And then you discover some new things. And sometimes you discover a new museum at the corner of a street or a bakery or a restaurant or a specific shop or whatever. And that's the pretty cool thing.
Also, I think if it goes wrong and you get lost or not anything bad happens, but when it doesn't go how you plan, that might be the greatest story of your life as well. Like if it goes wrong, you got a good story. If it goes right, you got
wrong.
Does it go too wrong? No, I guess it could. But I mean, like a wrong turn can sometimes turn into the most beautiful story of all time, in my experience. So don't be afraid, people. Now, I know the Olympics is something really important for you guys, even though it's been a year. How involved is Paris Je t'aime, the tourism board? How involved were you guys with the Olympics?
Well, we were very involved and we were lucky to be really at the heart, I would say, of decisions and everything what had happened on the Olympics. So that was pretty cool.
Were you like, I think it should be Celine Dion at the end?
We didn't know that, but we loved it. And even if you don't like Celine Dion, it was magical. So that was great, no doubt about it. So I would say probably the main job that we had, I would say 2 things. Probably one is how we engage the professionals of tourism in Paris.
So may I stop you? You keep saying this. Do you mean like tour guides, restaurant workers, this
exactly.
kind of thing? Yeah.
In fact, they're all members of a tourism office associations of Paris Je t'aime, and so we're really very close to them. So we're talking to them every month. We see them every time, etc. And so the role that we had with them was at the same time to manage expectations towards Olympics, because everybody's looking for the fantasy of the Olympics bringing so many people, etc., which is not exactly the case because it's mostly national and residents. So managing these expectations and build together the future of a destination for afterwards, and also engage them in terms of hospitality. That means we needed absolutely to be perfect, I would say, on this period because everyone was staring at us. So that was for us probably an accelerator for transformation. So we kept the objective, of delivering some new things for the Olympics, but in the mindset that they will be existing afterwards. So nothing was created especially for the Olympics. Everything was really created for afterwards also. So that was part of the challenges that we had. And the second one was really to also enhance the visitor experience, to be sure that we had the right tools. So, for example, the digital tools I was talking about, we created it especially for the Olympics. And I'm pretty sure that if we wouldn't have had the Olympics, it would have never existed. So that was pretty cool, just to be sure that we could deliver some things. And that was really the opportunity, I would say, to make everyone working together and be sure that we have everyone at the same table, focusing on the same goal, which is not always the case when you're in a day-to-day business case, usually.
Did you find that I lived in Sydney for the 2000 Olympics and people became happier? Australians are already pretty happy, but like it just was this very warm feeling. Do you feel that kind of thing happened with the Parisians during the Olympics?
it's always the same, in fact, during the Olympics. So till the first day of the opening, people are really, really bad buzz. They don't want it. They just criticize everything. And then it opens and that changes everything. And so everyone is happy. Everyone is regretting not to be there, etc. So but it's always the same. So
I heard a lot of people were Parisians who fled to be anywhere else, watched the opening ceremony and were like, what have I done? And then watched the games and started coming. Is that true? Did you hear a lot about that?
Yeah, of course. They all regretted. But again, it's not specific to Paris. It's always the same during the Olympics. But this period afterwards for the games is really a particular state of mind. This is really great. So very good atmosphere, people really looking after each other, congratulating everyone, focusing on the athletes. Athletes were rock stars during this period. That never happens usually. So that's really funny, the state of mind where you're engaged in a sort of collective emotion, sportive. You've never heard of some sport and then you're here just encouraging the athletes and you don't even know what the sport is. So that's really funny. But that's very particular to the Olympics.
And I think, I assume it's your job to say that the Olympics was a great success. Was it by every measurement the best thing that could happen for Paris in terms of the games being broadcast and everything? Or how good was it?
I would say that, of course, that was probably the best advertising campaign ever that we could have because it was at the same time very respectful of the city, but showing and showcasing the modernity of what we can do, the creativity, inclusion, everything. So that was, I'm pretty sure we ticked all the all the boxes.
Hey, there was a little bit of backlash on that opening ceremony that some people didn't like some small details of it. You just used it a very Parisian shrug. What do you make of that backlash?
Yeah, but it's always like that. When you're creative and innovative, some people don't like it. Yeah. But I think it's really a very good example of what Paris is as a city, a city who's moving, evolving, changing every time. And so sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't like it. But the change is absolutely mandatory anyway. You can't stay still. So I would say that's normal. That's a normal life, and that's really the best thing that could ever happen to the city anyway. Because
there's a risk with old cities like Paris that they get stuck in they become a medieval fortified town. You can't even build anything, for example.
Yeah, so, and I think the ceremony showed that it was not the case.
Yeah, good point. What about if we break it down business-wise? Have we got proof that this was a success?
I don't think this is the way we should look at the Olympics anyway. So that was not the purpose. That's why I was telling about managing expectations. The other good thing really with the Olympics is this accelerator which it represents, because it allows us to work on different things that could have taken years to do. Transportation, transformation of the Seine, accessibility, so many things that are really at the heart of the city and the DNA that we want to share. And we would have made probably 10 years to do that.
That's
and
interesting.
Finally, we did that in 3 years, so that was great.
So it's like now you can swim in the Seine this summer.
Exactly. And accessibility was a huge success. So we did a lot of audits of accessibility. We've got a very accurate information, actually. So we're very much more, I would say, in a good position to welcome some people with disabilities, which was not completely the case before. And so that's a huge improvement. And I think the consciousness of everyone around the disability was really a major assessment of the Olympics finally. So I think this legacy is so much more important than any, I would say, additional percentage of visitors that we have or business percentage or whatever. So that doesn't mean we don't need to have some increase of tourism and local expenses, etc. But I think this means so much more.
You've got to imagine the people watching this on the other side of the world must have just been going, look at that. Look at that beach volleyball next to the Eiffel, the Grand Palais with the fencing or whatever was going on. Just like these jaw-dropping backdrops. I can imagine, just amazing. On a more controversial note, though, wasn't there meant to be a train line from Charles de Gaulle that comes straight into the city, or was that just a...
Yeah, but it will come a little afterwards. So we can't accelerate on everything. We did deliver the line 14.
Sorry to ask controversial questions.
From Orly to
you know what? I love that.
And that's a pretty good one. Yeah. So it helps a lot to go in the north of Paris and everything. So, and the Charles de Gaulle Express will come afterwards.
It's coming, okay.
Yeah, it's coming.
So we can't just be positive with this conversation. I have to pick apart some things as well. But I do want to talk about a year has passed now. So I was at the presentation that you guys put on at the Eiffel Tower. Lovely room up there, by the way. That glass. Yeah. I mean, what is that room?
Impressive view.
Impressive.
Eiffel room.
They know what they're doing up there. But you guys did a chat where you talked about a year on, and specifically you talked about sustainability and the idea of reusing some of these event spaces and the way that the future of Paris has been sort of orchestrated a little bit through these games. What do you mean by that? You got the feeling that maybe you're trying to make people to go to some of these venues and so on. What's the idea?
Yeah, in fact, two facts probably is that one, we did use a lot of venues that were already existing. And when some of them were built, that was really because the territory needed that. So like a new arena at Porte de la Chapelle and the aquatic park in Saint-Denis. And so everything was really thought before to be reusable and be sure that we don't spend some money for something that couldn't be helpful afterwards. Mm-hmm. So I think this was really part of the logic of the games and the legacy that we wanted. And the idea was really to help also maybe to go out of the inner Paris to showcase that there were some other territories in the greater Paris. So the line 14, as we were saying, is really something very important also for us because it goes from Orly to the north of Paris. Mm-hmm. So that helps also people go to Basilique Saint-Denis, for example, or to Saint-Denis for new museum where they will be created. So I think it's part of this legacy that we wanted to be sure that this territory was a little different and more wider than we could expect, and to showcase that it is not only the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower, but you've got a lot of activity, nightlife, museum, like urban sports, urban culture, etc., in the north of Paris and different quarters. And I think this is also one of the best things that we did.
That's cool. The line 14, for people who don't know about it, that connects Orly to the north of Paris, is insanely good. Like when I took it. So I live near Gare de Lyon, so I take it to get back from Orly. Couldn't believe how modern and beautiful and fast, comfortable it was. Yep. But then I took it as well during the games. I went to see some water polo, and that station, whatever that new station is, but the new station that's up there when you get off to see the water polo, I couldn't. Pleyel. I couldn't believe how beautiful it was, because in Paris the metro stations are often 100 years old, and let's be honest, they need a makeover.
Yeah, exactly. But you can't ask a city who has the history that we have to be modern everywhere.
Of course,
that's not what we want either. So we've got to be practical and find the right balance also between what's possible according to constraint that we have with the monuments, the sidewalks, the stairs and everything. So that's not easy, but that's part of the identity of the city.
Exactly. And I was doing episodes about Rome where there's only 2 metro lines in Rome. They can't dig anything because they're going to find some ancient whatever. The fact that there's new stations is astonishing anyway. But in terms of I want to sort of, it would make more sense to end with the closing ceremony, but I want to talk about that opening ceremony again. I assume you were in Paris somewhere. Yeah. Where were you?
At Hôtel de Ville, on the bridge near Hôtel de Ville.
Okay.
So under the rain.
Yeah. So talk me through.
All wet.
Talk me through it. Like when you look back on it now, it was very wet, but do you look back on that as being this immense moment of pride, or was it like, were you nervous the whole time that something could go wrong?
No, we were very proud, I think. The only thing is that I would say we were very proud of a global atmosphere, and I think we were very excited, all of us, just sharing that together. But at the same time, afterwards, I was happy also to see that again on screens and everything, because the show was really all along the Seine. And so finally, when you were at one place, we just saw one part of it. And so that was so great just to see the whole thing afterwards. So that's it. But honestly, I think there was a global feeling of pride of everyone. And We were amazed, in fact. That was amazing just to see that. I think nobody believed it could happen.
So Corinne, how's my pronunciation? Corinne.
Yeah, you can say that. Corinne. I want to have a French accent finally.
After 10 years, I should be able to pronounce one word, right? Let's finish on the future of Paris. You're at the helm of Paris Je t'aime, the tourism board. What is going to happen in this city? What can we look forward to as Paris lovers and Francophiles out there listening?
Still a transformation of the city every day, keeping moving, like we were saying, with a lot of cultural events and attractiveness everywhere, because we were lucky to have such a number of events coming in and driving some new attendance also, even for the concert from Taylor Swift, Beyonce, or Drake now.
But they're all coming now, or they've had it already?
No, but Drake is coming, and I think the researchers on Google were exploded by 30% from outside France. So that's funny. That's
if you had to give me 200 guesses of what you would say about the future of Paris, Drake's concert would never have come up. That's interesting. That's such a big deal, huh? Bringing people here.
Yeah, and Beyonce, it's 40% of the attendance, which is foreign.
40% of what?
Of the attendance coming for the concerts of Beyonce.
She's like, and Taylor Swift.
It was 50% also. So this is really cool for us. So we like it. But that's the joke. But probably being more, what I would really focus on is really how we can make our tourists love more and more Paris and maybe support the destination. So we're looking at that with fundraising, expressing love for Paris and things like that, but also respect the destination. We have this hospitality manifesto that we made all the professionals sign before the Olympics, and we still go on with that. And I would love tourists to come to be able also to sign a sort of manifesto saying, okay, I respect the destination. I'm committed to make some local consumption, be respectful of the energy I'm consuming and everything. So I think it will be pretty cool, because I think it's part also of when you come to Paris, you choose to come to Paris. I would love that. People, to come here because they want for a reason, and they respect what we do also all day.
And then for 2/3 of them to come back again and again and again.
Yeah, of course. Anytime they want.
That's what I like to hear. Corinne, thank you so much for your time and your insight into this wonderful city. And thanks for being on the Earful Tower.
Thanks.
So there you have it, Corinne Menegaux from Paris Je t'aime. A lovely lady. It was lovely to have the chance to speak to her about this city. We chatted a little bit afterwards about other things we could do. I told her I love getting behind the scenes in cool places in Paris, so we'll see where that might go. As for you, thank you for listening to this show. A double thank you if you happen to be a member on Patreon or Substack. And a triple thank you if you've booked one of our walking tours or if you're thinking to do it. I'm really sort of doubling down on these walking tours. We do the Marais, Montmartre and Latin Quarter. And I'm really happy to say they're getting more and more popular. In fact, why don't I end on a little anecdote from a recent walking tour that I did in the Marais, my Monday morning one, my special walking tour. I was convinced by the people in the group to just step foot inside the Musée des Archives it's in the 3rd arrondissement, just on the edge of the 4th arrondissement. Even though I don't usually go that far in, but they convinced me to go in. And as we go in, the lady who's working there, she recognized me from, it must have been a year ago, that I was in the gift shop there, and I was looking for a very specific wax seal, like a royal seal. They had these replicas of ancient wax seals. And I'd asked if they have Philippe Auguste, the king from, back in the 1190s, 1210s, that kind of time. Regular listeners know I'm obsessed with his wall. And so when we step into the Musée des Archives, the lady comes up to me and she goes, "Hey, I remember you were looking for a seal, and I think I found the exact one you'd been looking for." I couldn't believe she remembered. And so she said, "Go and walk around the museum for a little bit. I'll try and dig it out." And lo and behold, she had one left, this little replica wax seal about the size of, I don't know, about the same diameter as a coffee cup. And it was broken in several places. And she was like, "It's all we got. They're not making them anymore. Do you still want it?" And I said, "Absolutely, I do." And I negotiated the price, which I only thought was fair. And now I have a little wax seal of my favorite French king, or at least the king who made my favorite landmark, the Philippe Auguste wall. No idea what I'm talking about? Dig into the archives of this show and find it. But the unexpected things that happen on a walking tour, the people on that tour were fans of the show and knew the importance of Philippe Auguste to me, partly because I'd just been talking about him for a lot of the walk. And it was a nice little ending to get a little treat like that. So the unexpected things that happen on an Earful Tower walking tour, whether I'm leading or one of my excellent guides, it's probably, I'd say, one of the best ways to see Paris. Don't waste your time. Book an Earful Tower walking tour, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Corinne, and I'll be back again next week with another episode. Au revoir.